This is Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. From the corporate office to the cab of a truck, they're here to inspire and empower women in all professions. So gear down, sit back, and enjoy.
Welcome to Women Road Warriors. We're an award-winning show that works to inspire and empower women in every profession. Our goal is to power women on their road to success. We tackle all kinds of topics and work to encourage women to be their very best with informative guests and women who've been champions. I'm Shelley.
And I'm Kathy.
No topic is taboo on our show. We tackle the tough topics along with the not-so-tough topics, and we like to feature experts and celebrities who can assist women in being the very best they can be. Healthcare costs and health insurance are some of the biggest expenses American families have. Too often, people are hit with surprise medical bills that are unmanageable and downright scary. Medical bills are some of the biggest reasons for bankruptcies. Costs for insurance have far exceeded inflation. Premiums for single coverage in an employer plan currently average $8,500 a year, and that's not tax deductible. It's a huge burden. Imagine what the costs are when someone needs medical care and the bills start coming in like a tidal wave. Patients find themselves in a position where they're fighting bills they don't understand with hospitals that are less than sympathetic. That pricing abuse resulted in the Hospital Price Transparency Rule that's designed to hold hospitals accountable and post their prices in a clear, easy-to-understand format on their websites. 2/3 of the nation's hospitals are still not complying with that law, and too many people are paying bills they should not owe. Power to the Patients is a nonprofit that's helping people fight back. It was established in 2021 to educate people about their rights and their recourse. Its sister organization, PatientRightsAdvocate.org, drives legislative efforts at the federal and state levels. Both organizations are a powerful resource to help people navigate a system that's seriously broken and stacked against them. With us today is Marni Carey, president of Power to the Patients. Before joining Power to the Patients, Marni served for 7 years as the executive director of the Association of Independent Doctors, a national nonprofit that supported independent doctors to prevent them from being acquired by hospitals and private equity groups. By preventing doctors from becoming system employees, AID's aim was to reverse the trend of healthcare consolidation and lower healthcare costs. Marni's an award-winning journalist who's worked for Tribune Media, the Los Angeles Times, and the Orlando Sentinel. She's authored 7 books, has been a nationally syndicated columnist, and frequent TV guest and speaker. Marni has a wealth of information to share with us today, and we're grateful to have her on our show. Welcome, Marni. Thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Shelley, and for that wonderful introduction.
You have so much knowledge and some wonderful credentials. And I wanted to thank you, first of all, for what you and your organization is doing. People can feel so powerless when they're trying to navigate a pile of bills after an unexpected medical procedure, and there's no help in sight. It seems like the doctors and the nurses people encounter truly care, but once the bill comes in, it's like the people at the top are all about the money. When did all of this get so crazy and out of control?
Well, you're right. The doctors and nurses aren't the problem. The problem starts at the top, and it has been an insidious growing kind of under our watch, over the last 10, 20 years. Hospital costs have crept up faster and faster. The cost of premiums have far exceeded inflation, as you point out. In fact, it's about 20%. Well, it is 20% of our gross national product. So for every $5 that you earn or your family earns, one of those dollars goes to pay for healthcare, whether you ever go to a doctor or not. And that is a sobering thought. If you think about how much money we spend, I'm talking about when you go out to dinner and your bill seems higher than it was a couple of years ago. That's because the employer has to pay for healthcare, and these employees have to pay for healthcare, and it all gets built into our infrastructure and into our budgets, and it's just got to stop because it's preventing people from saving and growing and getting housing that they need and sending their kids to school.
Oh my goodness, yes. I heard of a case of someone who had to have a lot of surgeries and diagnostic tests and treatments. He's a young man and working, and he had employer coverage. But after all was said and done, his portion of the bills was $2 million.
Wow.
I mean, how the heck do you navigate something like that? I mean, payments on something like that? You can't do it.
No
way. You can't do it.
Yeah.
No, that's insane. And
Yeah.
yeah, insurance isn't, it's we're all self-insured at the end of the day, right? It cost of the high deductible health plans, a lot of families are facing 8 to 10,000 deductibles before they get first dollar coverage. On top of that, they're paying $1,500 a month in premiums. So they're deep by the end of the year in terms of paying for their healthcare costs before they get any help from their insurance companies, who don't always cover everything that you need to have covered.
Yeah. What kind of system is even designed like that? I mean, if you get a vacation, you pay for it, you get your vacation. We're paying for stuff we're not necessarily using, but it's costing an arm and a leg.
Well, that's where healthcare price transparency comes in. And believe it or not, I believe that the cavalry is coming over the hill, Kathy and Shelley. I think there are answers in the wings. We are at the tip of the spear fighting this issue. And we're getting a lot of pushback from the industry. Hospitals and insurance companies do not want to reveal their prices and lower their costs, obviously. But we are making a very good case for the American people. And we think we have some really, really exciting progress that I hope we see a resolution within the next, 24 months.
Oh, wouldn't that be wonderful? Where is the pushback coming from? I question whether some of the politicians, too, are sympathetic the way they should be, because obviously they listen to the lobbyists, they listen to the PAC, the contributions that they have when they're running for office. It seems like it's all stacked against the American public.
Well, let's start with where the hospital price transparency rule started.
Okay.
And this is a bipartisan bill. So even though it has its roots in the Affordable Care Act, and then we brought it, and really at the tip of the spear is Cynthia Fisher, the founder of both of our organizations. She brought it to the attention of President Trump shortly after he was elected. He said, what do we need to do to get America great? And she said, we need healthcare price transparency. He said, let's get it done. And I'm running the Association of Independent Doctors. We're all about healthcare price transparency because independent doctors charge far less for equal or better service than their employed counterparts. So we're trying to get, if price transparency were out there, the market would drive more patients into the independent doctor's office. So anyway, I saw what she was doing. I told her that I loved what she was doing. Let me know how I could help. We became a team. We formed a letter. We got signed by 4,000 doctors. It got on President Trump's desk, and this is in May of 2019. And he signed in June the executive order for healthcare price transparency. That right after that, the American Hospital Association and other hospital groups sued the United States government, sued Alex Azar, who was our Health and Human Services Secretary at the time, and HHS, and said they can't be forced to show their prices. It's a breach of contract. These are private secret negotiated rates. And they lost twice in court. So in the January of 2021, the law took effect. Now, that's also the same month that Biden became president. So the hospitals were hoping that the new president would not be as interested in this law because it's one his predecessor built. And in fact, he was. He backed it full force. And we've had a little difficulty with the Health and Human Services Department in enforcement, but verbally they're all on board. So here we are. We have the bill. It's challenged in court. And what this it's not a bill, it's a rule. What this rule says, and what's so important, is that hospitals have to make available on their websites their most common shoppable services by payer and plan, and the cash price, the discounted cash price. So Shelley, if you need to get your tonsils out and you have Blue Cross, you can go online and say, okay, I have Blue Cross, this is my plan. What will it cost me to go to this hospital and get this done? You should be able to compare it against Aetna, Cigna, Humana, and the discounted cash price and the gross charge, what they call the charge master price that nobody's supposed to pay. You're supposed to be able to see, and what you would see if all this was presented would be a huge price variation. Mm-hmm. You will find a tenfold, maybe it's $2,500 if you have this insurance plan, but it's $25,000 if you have this insurance plan. So the idea behind healthcare price transparency is when all of these prices are exposed, the competition can kick in. So we don't have any competition in this market because you can't have competition without prices. So the idea is, let's get all the prices out there and let the negotiations begin, and let us find a level playing field where the prices become close. But that's what we don't have. But in no other industry do you go in and you, like you were saying, you don't go and you don't buy anything else in any other industry without knowing the price up front. If you pay for a vacation, you pay for your plane tickets, you pay for your dinner, you have a menu, you know the price, you get the bill, it's not a surprise. You go for a car, you might negotiate, but you know before you commit. In healthcare, you have no idea. You go in and you get your gallbladder removed, and you can't give it back when it's over. You can't negotiate after the fact, and you get this huge bill that you didn't see coming. Yeah. So we're trying to get prices to level out, competition into the market, and prices up front, guaranteed prices up front, so hospitals are held accountable to their prices and patients can plan and be empowered and have more financial certainty.
Oh, this is so wonderful. And it's so necessary. And when you think about it, you see across the nation, there are a lot of consolidations of the hospital systems where they actually have a monopoly. So they're driving the price all the time for people to actually see what they should be paying. I would think they have to drop their price. I can see where they're saying, we don't want to do this, but they should. I mean, frankly, it seems unconstitutional or is some sort of antitrust when they don't.
Absolutely. And we are making some progress. In addition, we can talk about what we're doing on the federal level at Capitol Hill. We have bills in both the House and the Senate that are moving forward that have promise, unless they get torpedoed by the opponents. And we're fighting on that front. We also have some state laws in effect. Colorado was one of the first. And they had a Supreme Court rule on a case where a woman, she had a spinal surgery, and she got slapped with a huge bill that she couldn't possibly afford. And the Supreme Court in Colorado said a patient cannot be expected to pay a bill they couldn't have anticipated. So it was a beautiful ruling. And we have since gotten into state law that if a hospital in Colorado is not complying with the hospital price transparency rule, and we'll talk about the rampant noncompliance in a minute, if a hospital is not complying in Colorado on the day you have your tonsils out or your spinal surgery, then they cannot send you to collections. This is a private right of action. This means that the hospital's on the hook for eating the bill. So that's a beautiful thing.
Oh, yeah.
So we're trying to get some teeth in the law to get hospitals to comply. And hats off to Colorado for taking the lead on that.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Dean Michael, the tax doctor here. I have one question for you. Do you want to stop worrying about the IRS? If the answer is yes, then look no further. I've been around for years. I've helped countless people across the country, and my success rate speaks for itself. So now you know where to find good, honest help with your tax problems. What are you waiting for? If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or haven't filed in years, call me now at 888-557-4020 or go to mytaxhelpmd.com for a free consultation and get your life back.
Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry. Our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro.
If you're enjoying this informative episode of Women Road Warriors, I wanted to mention Kathy and I explore all kinds of topics that will power you on the road to success. We feature a lot of expert interviews. Plus, we feature celebrities and women who've been trailblazers. Please check out our podcast at womenroadwarriors.com and click on our episodes page. We're also available wherever you listen to podcasts, on all the major podcast channels like Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Amazon Music, Audible, you name it. Check us out and bookmark our podcast. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, YouTube, and other sites. and tell others about us. We want to help as many women as possible. The cost of health care is out of control. 1 out of every $5 you earn goes to the cost of health care. Health care costs are so overwhelming, it's preventing people from saving, getting housing, and planning for a future. When you add in the insane cost of deductibles that can run $10,000 a year plus monthly premiums of over $1,000 a month, those coverages still have percentages patients still owe once they meet their deductible. It's insane. People are being strapped to a roller coaster ride that can shove them into bankruptcy if they actually have to use their insurance benefits. Power to the Patients was formed to stop this insanity and give patients a way to fight back to lower or erase medical bills they can't afford. We're talking to Marni Carey from the organization, who's telling us about the protections patients have, as well as their recourse. Hospitals must be transparent about their pricing, but barely 1/4 of the hospitals are compliant with this federal requirement. Marni's with us to teach us how we can fight back. Marni, the collection actions by hospitals are super aggressive. These hospitals want their money. And when you think about it, people have just had a medical procedure or they have a health concern. They've got all of these bills, they've got all of these fees, they've got all of these things, and they've got collection agencies calling them. It's terrible.
Right. And I'm on the phone often with patients, and I have this one that just sprung to mind. She's in Wyoming, and she worked in a restaurant as a server, and she did not have insurance from her company. She just had to cover herself, and she got COVID. And she asked for a couple days off work, and her boss wouldn't give it to her. And can you imagine? And so she didn't show up to work, and she got fired. And it turned out she went to the urgent care, and they said, you need to go straight to the hospital. She was on not a ventilator, but she was under care in the hospital for a few days. She had a chest X-ray. She got stabilized. She went home, and then she got a bill for $70,000.
Oh
my God!
Yeah, and she's like, and wait, if you are not insured in the United States, you are not, and you have COVID, and you go to the hospital, you are not supposed to get a bill. She didn't know that. She didn't know. She's a waitress. She's a single mom. She doesn't really not up to speed on all this stuff. She just thinks she's going to be on the hook for this huge amount, when she is. And so she ends up complaining, and she ends up having to move in with her mother, and she's like 45. But she loses her apartment. She can't afford anything. She gets a job in a truck stop, and now the hospital is garnishing 25% of her $300 a week paycheck.
Oh my gosh.
Right, to pay for this bill that will never end. And she got subpoenaed to go to court to fight it. And she did have an argument, but she didn't know it. Her argument was, I don't have to pay this because the government was supposed to. But she didn't show up in court because, as she said to me, what am I going to say? I owe this bill. I don't have the money. I gotta go to work. And then she lost her ability to fight the bill. So we're trying to retroactively say, hey, hospital, you should never have sent this bill. Meanwhile, our wages are getting cut. This is our system. It is corrupt. It is greedy. And these hospitals continue to put profits ahead of patients every single day. And we want our hospitals to be successful. We want them to profit. We want them to make money, but they don't have to be paying their executives $27 million salaries a year and having skyboxes and all the things that they do when, and not paying taxes, PS, as many don't. So we're just trying to get the greed and excess out of the system. And I think transparency is the way to do it.
I totally agree. It's predatory, what's going on. It really is. And the example you just gave, the hospital had to have known that they were doing something that was illegal.
One would think. Yeah, one would think.
Now, you said 2/3 of the hospitals are not complying. And how is that with this new transparency law?
Right. So the hospital price transparency rule, as I mentioned, requires 2 different mandates. One is they have to put up what we call a machine readable file of all of their prices and procedures and services. And those are not files that you or I can read. Those are files that aggregators, high-tech aggregators like an Uber or an Amazon or Google, they could get in and they could access this and make sense out of it. So we could find a price on an app on our phone, which will be a beautiful thing when that happens. The other side of it is there's 300 shoppable services that we can see as patients, and we don't like this and we're trying to get rid of it, or the hospital can put a consumer-facing estimator tool. That means that if you have to go and get your tonsils out, they want to know what's your name, what's your date of birth, what's your insurance, et cetera, et cetera. They do a big data grab on you and what do you need done? And then they give you an estimate. And that can go up or down. There's all this fine print, but they're supposed to give you an estimate of what the price will be. That and with that, most of the hospitals there are complying with the rule, and it looks to be about 1 out of every 3 are doing an estimator tool, which we find worthless, but they're also posting as machine readable files. But because many of these files are also incomplete, and because not everybody's posting them, we're not in a position for the aggregators to come in and do a really great tool like that would be the next Uber or Yahoo or Zillow of healthcare. So we're creeping along, but the bigger problem is there's no teeth because they're probably we have about 6,000 hospitals in the United States. So let's say 2,000 are in compliance, 4,000 should be fined. And our government has only fined fewer than 15 to date.
Oh, geez.
It's pathetic. It's pathetic. Yeah. And it's taken them a long time. It took them almost a year to find the first 2, and then they find a couple more and little wrist slaps here and there. It's just not. And so the hospitals are getting away with murder because they don't have to put these prices out there because nothing's going to happen. So we're working really hard at the federal level to get congressional law that will not only strengthen the rule that exists, but also strengthen its enforcement. And that is where I think the hope lies.
Do you think once all of this works, it's really going to lower a lot of the costs?
I believe so. I've worked in this space a long time, and I like this diagram. If you can close your eyes and imagine for a minute, a sun at the top of a triangle. And the sun exposes everything. It shines the light. Sunshine trickles through everything underneath. If we had price transparency, it would be like the sunshine. The sunshine would say, if you go here, your MRI is going to be $3,500, but if you go here, it'll be $350. So it will expose these ridiculous price variations. There's something that when hospitals acquire independent doctors groups or freestanding imaging centers, and those become hospital-owned entities, they get to layer in what's called a facility fee. This is a huge number. It can sometimes be 5 times more than the base, sometimes 10 times more than the base price because they say, oh, we have to keep the lights on 24/7 and we have all this overhead. And so that's what's driving the consolidation is their ability to layer in these facility fees that are at 0 value for you and me. There's 0 value. Where we could do the same thing we could get that, like that's the MRI issue. We could get an MRI for $350, or we can go into the hospital and pay. I have at Mass General, there was a friend of mine was getting a bill for $7,400 for an MRI that he could get for $200 in Florida. So this would show up, and consumers would be empowered to look at the price and go, whoa, pump the brakes. I'm not going to that imaging center or that hospital-owned laboratory. I'm going to this one. I'm going to this independent doctor where the cost is a lot less, because if you're self-insured or you have a high deductible health plan, the money coming out of your pocket matters. So all these things will start to be exposed as we have transparency and price at the top of the food chain. And another piece of law that has gone into effect right after it was about 18 months after the healthcare hospital price transparency rule went into effect. That was January of 21. In July of 22, we had the transparency in coverage rule take effect. This is a companion rule to the hospital rule, and it requires all insurance companies to post their prices, their negotiated rates. So in a perfect world, you'd say, oh, well, Blue Cross says it charges this much for a tonsillectomy if I go to this hospital, and this hospital says it charges something else. So we all get along and figure it out. So it would create some accountability, and we could match up these prices and everything would start to make sense. But of course, that hasn't gone beautifully. What the insurance company did, rather than withhold the information like the hospitals have been doing, they did a ginormous data dump, and only the pinniest pinhead could figure it out. And you would need a giant computer to even start to crack it. But they literally got their information out there, but they made it impenetrable.
Oh, so, sure. Much like insurance contracts. They're hard to read too.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So we're working on clarification and bringing all these numbers out into a usable format where things can match up and patients can say, hey, my bill needs to match my estimate, or the price that you quoted me and my bill need to match. And there's some accountability and certainty in the process. But I do think it'll bring costs way down fast. I think it'll lower costs fast, which will increase access, which is what we all need. We have a nation, we're spending twice as much as the next developed country on our healthcare, and we have a declining lifespan. That's not okay.
No, it's not. And it's happened within the past, 40 years at least? It's just kind of evolved?
It's kind of precipitous in the last 10, but it's been starting on the downward slide, since the 70s,
It's terrible, just terrible.
It just occurred to me that last year I had to take, being Canadian, my insurance, well, I don't have insurance here, but I was in Reseda and I had to call an ambulance. And I spent 4 hours in the emerge. I had inhaled some bleach and I was really sick. And anyway, the ambulance bill was $2,500. The hospital bill was $8,300. And I didn't have anything done. All they did was give me IV and some meds, and that was it. They flushed out my system. So together it was like $10,000. And I'm like, oh my God, right? And so luckily my insurance company from Canada paid for it, which I was very grateful. And now 3 weeks ago here, I have a severe allergy to gluten, and ended up eating some gluten unknowingly. And the ambulance bill here in Redondo was $3,386 for a 5-minute ride. And the hospital bill was, by far contrast to Reseda, it was only $2,000. And I spent 6 hours there, and I had a CT scan. I had, what else did I have? I had an ultrasound and I had an EKG, and I'm really like, how is that possible? Like the price difference is like astronomical. Like, how do you go from, like, it's so shocking to me.
Yeah.
And I mean, luckily, once again, like my insurance company will pay for it. But I mean, how many times can I go to the hospital that my insurance company is going to pay for it? So now I'm looking as a Canadian to get healthcare for here. So that's a whole new process, which I'm still not sure how I'm going to navigate, but you need to.
Oh yeah.
Well, in both cases, you were in the vulnerable position of walking into the hospital with a blank check. And it's sort of like going to Las Vegas. Sometimes you come out okay, and sometimes you don't, and you don't know. And there just needs to be more certainty. There was a story that came out about, it showed up. It was a Sutter Health in California, where on the same day, the same surgical team could perform a C-section on one woman and a C-section on another woman, same place, same team. And one woman was charged $6,000. Her bill was $6,000, and the other woman, her bill was $60,000 because of their six. So 10 times more. And this is not unusual. This is a typical example, a 10 times increase. Same surgical team, same day, same facility. Everything's the same, but the plan. And that is just completely unrealistic. The plans need to shake out. We're not looking for the cheapest care. Nobody wants that. But we do need it to be like, what cost plus? When you get a car, the car manufacturers know how much it costs in terms of parts and labor to build that car. And then they add a profit. Congratulations, you should get a profit. And then give us a firm price. We should do that with hospitals. How much does it cost you to deliver a baby? And teamwork, all the things you need. We don't want to shortchange anyone. And then make a profit, and then give us a price, not 20 prices.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Trucking Moves America Forward, or TMAF, is building a positive image of trucking by telling the story of the hardworking drivers and industry professionals who support the industry. And you can be a part of it. Learn more about TMAF and how you can join and be a part of the industry movement working to build a strong image of trucking by visiting TMAF's website at truckingmovesamerica.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our latest channel, TikTok.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro.
Hospitals around the country are engaging in predatory collection practices. many times with bills patients do not rightfully owe. The misbehavior has been rampant and accounts for the continuation of the bankruptcies people are forced into. Even with new federal transparency rules, which have had poor compliance, patients are victims of a corrupt system where many hospitals put profits ahead of patients. Too many times patients don't know their rights. They're caught up in a confusing legal process with mounting bills and no place to turn. There's still a lack of transparency on prices. Many hospitals should be fined, but the government has also been lax on enforcement. Power to the Patients was formed to stop this insanity. They're helping people fight back on their bills and working to get the greed and excess out of the system. Marni Carey, president of Power to the Patients, is telling us all about it. Marni, it's such a problem that hospital pricing varies so much, and patients aren't informed so that they can make an educated choice. They're really being held captive by a broken and corrupt system. I know there are a lot of factors involved. I think it's also dictated too by the insurance companies because the hospitals know what they'll cover. I heard of a story, I won't name the hospital, but there was a woman who went in to have a baby and they got a bill from their employer-based insurance for a dual admission.
Hmm? What?
She went in
But the
to
baby
have...
was when
Yeah.
they did take her baby as an admitted patient.
They
Oh my gosh.
billed for the child being admitted as well. When in fact
Oh.
that she went in to have the baby. Oh yeah,
Gosh.
I
You
mean
come in
that.
as one and you come out as two.
Right. And
Same.
I know personally, I remember going in to have what's called a septoplasty. I had to have my deviated septum fixed for my sinuses. And I went through my bill and I saw some things on there that didn't fit. They were pediatric charges. And I
What?
called and I said, I haven't been pediatric for a long time. And I called my insurance company too. I said, I shouldn't have to pay this. Yeah, they just kind of snuck it in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had just a patient was saying she had had a hysterectomy, and subsequent to that, they charged her to went to the hospital. And they charged her $635 for a pregnancy test. She's like,
Uh-huh.
I cannot be pregnant. You should not charge me that. Anyway, it's insane what they do. It's mind boggling.
And that's just greed. You can't tell me that they aren't making money hand over fist by doing that sort of thing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
there's a lot that needs to come. There needs to be a big correction, and that's why we're getting such pushback. If you look, there's a group called Open the Books, and if you look online, you can find out who the biggest donors are to congressional lawmakers. And in the top five every single year, it's the pharmaceutical manufacturers, it's American Hospital Association, it's American Medical Association. They're in the top five players, and these and Blue Cross. These are paying $500 million a year in lobbying fees. And how much do the American people, how much do we spend in our group? Zero. We're up there, making a lot of, wearing off a lot of shoe leather, walking into various offices, explaining what needs to happen and being on the right side of Americans. And by the way, this is a 90% issue. If you survey Americans and the voters, 90% want to know the price of their health care. So why aren't the lawmakers doing what the American public wants? Well, why don't you guess?
Follow the money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we are doing the name, shame, and blame game, and showing who's getting what money from who, and is that really how you want to, run your senatorship? And showing the hospitals for what they're doing. And
Yeah.
I like to say we wake up on the side of the angels every day.
I love what your organization is doing, Marni. You're
No
giving
kidding.
hope. Yeah, you're giving hope to so many people. And the thing is, when somebody's navigating a medical bill that they didn't anticipate, or even if they did, they knew that they had to have maybe some elective surgery, but they get all of these bills coming in. They have no idea where to turn. They don't know how to negotiate with the hospitals. What does a person do? Because some of these bills, people don't have the ability to pay that.
Or fight. Yeah, I've been dealing all morning and for much of the last few months, not entirely, but on and off. This woman, she's in Tennessee near Nashville. She needed one ovary removed. She's a school teacher. She's in her late 40s, and she had a Medishare plan, which was it's not really insurance, but it's like a Christian health sharing plan.
Mm-hmm.
And she knew that her high deductible plan with her family was $12,000, and that was going to be a lot of money for her. So she underlined this all caps very diligently, went to the hospital and said, how much will this cost? And I have the printed form that says $5,535. Okay, we got that. She came out of the hospital and her Medishare plan got a bill for $61,000. And right. And she's like, wait, what is this? Oh, well, that was just an estimate, completely disregarded. And she confirmed it the morning before surgery. This is all I have to pay, right? She's done everything she possibly can do. And then she goes in and finally the health plan feels over a barrel and negotiates with the insurance company and pays them $24,000, which is still astronomically high. She was in outpatient surgery for 3 hours, no more, no complications, in and out, boom. This is ridiculous. So she is trying to find the CPT code so I can tell her what it should cost based on what that her hospital, the prices we can figure out. But she can't even find the CPT code. She's been calling everyone up, billing offices. She can't even figure it out. So we can't even compare the price. It is horrible. It's a horrible system because we want to say, why did you bill $61,000 when we know your price should be $7,500? We're just trying to get to the bottom of it. But anyway, it's very difficult. I don't want to tell anybody we have a magic wand over here. We do work with an organization who is really wonderful. It's called Patient Fairness. And they will, for $40, patients submit their bills and they will create, depending on your answers, they have auto-filled fields that will generate a letter and pull the different levers in your state that will require your hospital to either reduce your price, waive your bill, or explain themselves. And while you're going through this procedure, they're supposed to freeze any kind of collection proceedings on you until they get to the bottom of it. And one of the levers that we pull is the No Surprises Act requires hospitals to give patients a good faith estimate in writing or by email in advance of their surgery if it's elective. So if you go into the ER, it's hard to do, but if you're having an elective knee replacement, they're supposed to give you an itemized bill beforehand. And if they don't do that, you have a case for not paying the bill. So we have gotten some bills waived with this mechanism, and that's very hopeful, but it shouldn't be so hard, Shelley. It just shouldn't. And Kathy.
No, and it's wonderful what you're doing here because you're really empowering patients to navigate the whole complicated system from the medical coding, which most people don't understand, to all of the hidden fees, hidden costs, the various things that the hospitals try to sneak through. And I think a lot of the hospitals will show you maybe a good faith estimate, what they call, and I put this in air quotes, a good faith estimate, but they don't itemize. So people don't really see what they're paying for. And a lot of them are awestruck. It's like, I have to have a diagnostic test. This is ridiculous. Why is it this much money? But then you have the hospitals buying up all of these satellite facilities for diagnostic tests so they can dictate the market and the price. So you
and facility fees.
Oh, yeah. And so people have to drive 100 miles to have the same test at a competitive price. That's wrong, too.
Well, and I think that patients will drive if they know. And if you're in one of these monopoly areas, which I live in one, where you know that they're driving up the price because they own everything in sight, and you drive 60 miles or so because you can get it for 1/10 the price, people are driving. So the other thing, to your point, Shelley, which is so important, is we also want bundled payments. So like the hospitals don't make it easy. They'll say, oh, well, that was just for the OR. That wasn't the surgeon, and that wasn't the anesthesia, and that wasn't the pre-op, and that wasn't the blood work, and that wasn't the physical therapy, and that wasn't the medical device. That was just the OR time. You're like, well, wait a minute. Just give me the whole price for my knee replacement. Just give me one number, the whole thing, everything included. When you buy a car, you don't say, oh, I'd like a steering wheel and seats, please. So, some of the airlines are getting like that. We have to pay for the baggage, pay for your seat.
Oh, yeah, I'm surprised they don't just pay for the bathroom, too.
Exactly. That's next. Don't give many ideas. But anyway, we want just bundle the price because that's another workaround. Estimates are one of their workarounds, which we're trying to shut down. And another workaround is not having a total price. And they split it up in as many pieces as they can so they can keep having you fill their cookie jars, and the bills keep coming. That feeling you think you get one bill, you think you're done, you get two more, and then you get another one. Come on.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, we're trying to get to the bottom of that too. They know they know how much it costs. One of the arguments is, oh, well, we don't know. Everybody's different. It's, it's so complicated until you receive your care. We don't know how long you'll be in the OR. We don't know how long. Oh, what if you have a complication? Here's what I do know. If you do 500 coronary bypass surgeries in a year in your hospital, you can take an average of what they cost from the worst case to the best case, and you can find some middle ground and maybe round up and set a price. And that's called business. When you buy an airline ticket to fly from New York to San Francisco, and you buy it in April and you're flying in September, your price is not going to change, but your airline might be suddenly facing a crew shortage, high gas prices. They may be stuck on the tarmac for 2 hours. They may have a mechanical issue. That price might cost them a lot more than they think it should, but they can average it out and make sure their bases are covered. And that's called business. And hospitals can do the same thing.
Oh, sure. And they do, but they like to play a little game here. It's a vicious cycle.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Kathy Tuccaro is nothing short of amazing. She not only drives the world's biggest truck as a heavy equipment operator in northern Alberta, Canada. She's an international motivational speaker and the author of Dream Big, an autobiography about overcoming a lifetime of trauma and abuse that led to dreams of success. Kathy inspires people the world over to change their lives and improve their self-worth. Her book will change your life. She's passionate about personal growth and believes anyone can change their circumstances and overcome their obstacles if they believe in themselves. Her life will amaze you and seriously inspire you. Be sure to order a copy of her book, Dream Big, on Amazon.com. Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry, our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro.
Hospital systems and insurance companies are some of the biggest lobbyists in Congress, and political donors, too. It's no wonder that change isn't happening very fast to reverse the terrible logarithm of unmanageable medical bills and unethical billing practices patients are seeing today. Marni Carey, president of Power to the Patients, is telling us what we need to know and how they're working to change the system in favor of the patient. Her organization also works with Patient Fairness, who can go to bat for the patient on outrageous medical bills, so there's a place for them to turn. Marni, can people reach out to your organization? What exactly does your organization do for people when they're just, quite frankly, I don't think a lot of people know about you. They don't know you exist, which this is marvelous that we're bringing this to the forefront so people can pick up the phone and say, please help me.
Well, they can follow us. They can go on to and sign up and get our alerts and our emails and our updates at powertothepatients.org. All one word, website powertothepatients.org. And keep us posted on, keep posted on our progress. They can reach out to me. We can't always wave a magic wand, but very often, and this is, we try to help, but we also need patients to tell us what they're billing horror stories, especially in individual states, so we can bring that to the attention of lawmakers. Because I can talk all day long about how painful it is for Americans, but when I can bring my patient from Wyoming or this woman from Nashville to the attention of the lawmakers and they can share their story, it's really powerful. So we need patient stories, that would be very helpful to us. And we need patients who will go on the record with their names and their cities and tell us stories and show us their bills and be a voice. And oftentimes when they come forward and they do make their case public, miraculously the hospitals waive the bill. I don't know why, but that just sort of happens. So that is one avenue. But Our job at Power to the Patients, and it was founded for the sole purpose of making sure every single American now knows that they have the right to know their price before they get their care. And not only do they have the right, part two of that is to make sure they can realize that right. So we're trying to make sure hospitals are held accountable and insurance companies are held accountable to the rule because it's the law. Those are our two missions.
This is wonderful. It keeps them from being bullies, because I think a lot of people have been bullied into a corner with these medical bills, and they have no idea what the heck they're looking at. They just know that they've got the national debt that they have to pay for sometimes the rest of their lives.
Well, it's 100 million Americans are in medical debt, in serious medical debt, not just small medical debt, in serious medical debt. And as you mentioned in your intro, it's not one of the leading, it is the leading cause of personal bankruptcy in this country. So it shouldn't be that way. We shouldn't have to choose between bankruptcy and being alive.
That's right.
I do a lot of volunteer charity with the homeless, like I distribute water and food. Anyway, and it often occurs to me as I'm talking with them, how many people have lost everything because they couldn't afford their medical bills, and how overwhelming it became. And people just give up. They're like, you know what, I can't do this. And what do you expect me to do? And then if they have bad health issues, they end up losing their job. And then how are they supposed to pay? And then they lose their house. And then it's so overwhelming. And the depression and the anxiety, it just, they run out of their own personal strength and hope and courage. And they just say, well, this is it, and they end up living in a tent, which is awful. Awful.
Yes.
We have the wealthiest country, and the people are impoverished by healthcare, and it's completely unacceptable. As humans, we can't let this happen to our fellow Americans. I was just reading the Wall Street Journal the other day about a fellow who was rationing his insulin because it was costing him like $240 some a month, and he found out that the same company that makes that insulin and sells it for $240 also sells it for $25 a month if you went another route. I'm like, this is just not okay. This is just not okay.
Yeah, people don't know where they can get the better price, and it should be readily available. And that's why I love what you're doing here. Education and knowledge is such power.
It is powerful. And I'll leave listeners with another point. We've already talked about estimates. Don't accept an estimate. You want a real price and a guaranteed price. But the other thing is you want the total price. One of the ways the industry is trying to game the system is to say, oh, Americans don't care about the total price. They only care about their out-of-pocket costs. So you have to have a knee replacement. What is my out-of-pocket cost? Well, that is important. But no, we want the total price, because let's say the total price of the knee replacement is $50,000 and your piece of it's $2,500. You, me, and Kathy, pick up the rest of that. All of Americans pay the entire bill through higher premiums and the higher cost of goods and services. So no, we don't just want to see our out of pocket. Yeah, that might personally matter, but we need you to expose the total price, because that is the price that we need to start competing with.
Yeah, I mean, it's inconceivable that this goes on, because, I mean, when you buy a car, they've got all of that disclosed. They have to. This is what you're buying. These are some of the additionals, et cetera, et cetera. This is your out-of-pocket, depending on your down payment, et cetera, et cetera. And this is what your cost is out the door, your total cost, all of the above. It seems like the hospital system, the medical system, is the only one that doesn't have to do that. And I don't know why that isn't even considered racketeering, frankly.
Yeah, they're gaming the system for sure. And, when you buy a house, there's another industry. Everything has to be disclosed, signed, no surprises. And, you have your eyes wide open going in. And you're told 4 and 5 times what your payment's going to be, what your interest rate is. And why not in healthcare?
It's so needed.
That change is coming.
Excellent. Where do people reach out to you?
They can reach me at Marni, MARNI, at powertothepatients.org.
And your sister organization, how do they reach that organization as well?
PatientRightsAdvocate.org. Wonderful organization, again, founded by Cynthia Fisher, who truly is the tip of the spear on all this. And and the brains and the inspiration and the gasoline that we all run on. She's remarkable. She founded that organization, and as you mentioned earlier, they are taking the fight to Capitol Hill and the state level, and working with policy and lawmakers. And our side, we're two sides of the same coin, and our organization is working with the grassroots. We have hip hop artists singing out about us, getting the word across. We have plane poles going over the Super Bowl. We have advertisements on buses and in metro stations and murals all over the country talking about power to the patients. And we're both fighting the same fight really hard.
And you also mentioned an organization people will probably want to write down that can help people. They can help them resolve their bills with the hospitals.
Yes, it's patientfairness.org.
Okay.
And they have a form that you submit and you pay a small fee. And that's where I refer people who are challenging their medical bills. And, it's better if you haven't already paid them, because it's very hard to claw back money once it's been paid. But if you're in dispute, this is a great vehicle to use.
This has been so informative, Marni.
Oh my God, has it ever?
Well, thank you for your interest, ladies. It's
Yes.
not the sexiest topic in the world. I look at your lineup and there's some
one.
pretty. It's serious though, yeah. So I appreciate your interest.
Necessary. My
Oh,
gosh.
yeah. There's so many people who need this help, and they're just in despair. And it needs to stop, that people don't freak out every time they go to their mailbox after they've had a medical procedure.
Well, and we have 50% of Americans have said they have delayed needed medical care because they're afraid of the price.
Oh, yeah.
And that doesn't do anything. It doesn't help our outcomes at all.
No.
People need to get medical care when they need it and not be afraid of the system. But to put it off can cost your life.
Thank you, Marni, for what you're doing and what your organization's doing. You're giving us hope.
Well, I have hope, or I wouldn't be doing this every day. So I do appreciate your helping us get the word out and your interest and support. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You're true soldiers, and you're helping people. This is wonderful.
Well, it's my pleasure. Honored to do it.
We hope you've enjoyed this latest episode. And if you want to hear more episodes of Women Road Warriors or learn more about our show, be sure to check out womenroadwarriors.com. And please follow us on social media. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. On our website, we also have a selection of podcasts just for women. There are a series of podcasts from different podcasters. So if you're in the mood for women's podcasts, just click the Power Network tab on womenroadwarriors.com. You'll have a variety of shows to listen to anytime you want to. Podcasts made for women. Women Road Warriors is on all the major podcast channels like Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Audible, YouTube, and others. So check us out, and please follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. If you want to be a guest on the show or have a topic or feedback, email us at sjohnson@womenroadwarriors.com.